Hey everybody, welcome back to another feedback session. Today we have a piece by Tam Ta on the Discord, so let's get into it. First of all, Tom, amazing job with this. I love the composition that you chose. I love the set dressing and all your choices here I think are really, really good. So what I'm going to say is just, a couple of suggestions to kind of help strengthen the piece, in my opinion. So the first thing I noticed here was that I love this right side of the image. I didn't touch this much at all. I think from here on it feels slightly flat, I think, and I think the reason for that is because it feels like there's the same amount of atmosphere from this building to this building to this building to this building. It feels like the planes of depth aren't super clear. So the first thing I wanted to do was sort of, kind of achieve the value stepping that they have here. You can see um, how dark these darks are, and as you go back, back here you lose it completely. So I think you've done a good job, so far with some of these buildings, but I think a little more separation might help you achieve a little bit more depth in the image. So let's see. Turn this on. So there's a couple things that I did here. First of all, it felt like this end of this building was getting too much atmosphere too quickly. I think it's a little closer than it would be to get that much atmosphere. So I upped the contrast. Keep in mind this is just paint over versus like adjustment layers on Photoshop. So when you actually do it in render, it's gonna look a lot better than I'm doing here. But hopefully you get the idea. So I took off some atmosphere, up the contrast on this building here, and that kind of helps it separate out from these buildings back here. And I felt like, this group of buildings was kind of doing the same thing. So I upped the contrast here. So it's going to be less contrasty than this, ideally, because it's getting a little more atmosphere, but not too much. And then we want to step back, some of these to create layers in your image. So I stepped this water tower back even more. I don't know where it is in actual 3D space, but I'm assuming it's a little bit further back. And this building here, you can see, I think this is a separate building because you can kind of see it behind a little bit over here. But I often try to avoid tangents, just because it can get kind of confusing. Like, what am I looking at? Is this one building or is this two buildings? So I'm not sure how much control you have over the set, but what I did here, if you do have control, was actually move the building. Kind of did a bad job painting, but you get the idea. I moved it over to create, an overlap with the front building here. And I think it just creates kind of a bit more depth in the space. And then I painted in the sky. One thing with the sky that I noticed on yours was that it was getting quite dark up here, and it almost looked like smoke or like a really dark cloud. But with the clouds back here, it didn't quite read as how a real sunset sky would look. So I just sort of brightened it up a little bit. Hopefully you'll have more detail in here, but I think this kind of helps to clear up the sky and sort of, make it feel a little bit more like that golden hour, or a little past golden hour. So that's for the value stepping. I think this will help sort of draw your eye to the most contrast in the frame and also give the image some depth. There's a couple things here. This next section, I'm getting out of the value stepping territory and now going into more of the distractions for your eye sort of area. I felt like, this staircase is really massing up into one shape, one really dark shape, and it's kind of competing, right, with Spider-Man here. I think maybe getting some shape onto this staircase might help, and also just brightening it as a whole. So I just brightened it a little bit here just to step it back a little bit. But same thing for this light pole here. It's super, super dark, and it's kind of, my eye kind of goes over there sometimes to look at what exactly is going on here. So I think probably, this is a really bad paint over, but you know, like making it less contrasty here, and maybe adjusting the material on these lamp posts to give more of a metallic feel might help. The neon sign. So, you know, I think Spider-Verse plays these up quite a bit. He's being, you know, lit by one of these, so it must be pretty bright. And I don't, you know, want to lose what you have here, which is it feels like a neon sign, which is great. I think it's a tad bright. This is almost like white. You know, if you select it, it's pretty much white. So I just brought them down just the slightest bit and blurred them. You know, you might want to look into, they love to do this sort of bloom effect. So you might want to look into doing that on some of these just to kind of show brightness, but not actually have it like white in the scene. So, you know, take this as far as you want, but I sort of brought it down just to the level where I thought it still reads as a sign that's lighting up, but no, you know, not quite as harsh. Same thing with the street signs. I think your eye is really drawn to letters, you know, faces and letters, and this Grand Street sign and this Don't Walk are super bright. So, you know, I tend to want to just keep reading what's on this. So I just took them down slightly here. This is a small one, but this air conditioning I think was popping a little bit for me, so I brought it down. Another thing that's kind of similar to what I did on this building here is, you know, a lot of times we'll get notes about tangents and separating the character out from the environment. I think maybe hitting this ladder with a little bit of light here will help separate his head from the environment more, and you can get a good read of his silhouette. I think one thing Spider-Verse does super well is really get these strong silhouettes with rims and reading dark over light and light over dark. So I think, you know, doing that wherever you can would be great. You already have a great read on the rest of his silhouette, so I think, you know, this is a small thing, but it might just strengthen the read just a little bit. And the other thing, I was kind of talking about this earlier with the shaping of this railing. You can barely see it, but maybe adding a top light, like a really big area light or a directional light that's super soft, that's sort of lighting everything from above, might help you get some more shape in some of these darker areas. You know, this is just an idea, but, you know, hitting maybe those tops of those railings and getting some shape on these stairs and stuff might help it, you know, not read as just one super graphic shape. I think, you know, here you can really make out the details of everything, and it still masses together within values, but, you know, you don't want to get to the point where it looks like it's cut out of your image. So maybe think about adding a top light. It might help. These buildings in the back, this is really crooked, but these buildings in the back I think can read a little bit flat in the shadow as well, so a top light might help kind of pop out certain details. And maybe think about window reflections. They use it to really great effect in Spider-Verse. You can see here. You know, the sky would be reflected in these windows unless they're, you know, made of plastic or whatever. But it might be kind of cool to get some sort of reflection in these windows all around, just to add some interest. Right now they kind of look a little bit too matte, I think. I don't necessarily think it's you know 100% necessary, but it might be interesting to try. And the other thing is the chromatic aberration. So Spider-Verse loves to do this. Instead of depth of field, instead of, I think, motion blur, sometimes they use chromatic aberration. It's easier to see here where, you know, it's a lens effect, but it's sort of offsetting with different colors, usually red and green or blue. You might want to try that back here if you're going for that look, right? So I know you were talking about using Z defocus. You could try the chromatic aberration instead of that and see if it sort of gets you closer to this Spider-Verse-y look, if that's what you're going for. But yeah, I mean, overall, these are really small notes. I think I can show you what it looks like before and after. Take whichever ones you think make sense to you. You can leave the ones that don't. But yeah, this is before and after. Hopefully that helps. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.